Hello, my dear friends. Thank you for connecting with me once again. Today, I am your host, Dr. Sirish Nelivigi, greeting you all to this new podcast session where I have brought a very serious topic to the front for discussion. Today, we are going to talk to you about eye care guidelines for children to follow during online classes. As we all know, the novel coronavirus or COVID 19 has changed our lifestyle a lot, and one such important change the children are attending the online classes. Parents have a very common question to ask. They ask me, will vision of my child be affected by excessive exposure to the screen? As I discussed in my previous podcast episode of Let There Be Vision, we will discuss and try to create awareness about healthy vision. In this podcast episode, I would like to discuss about eye care guidelines for children to follow during online classes. So listen to it carefully, since this affects most of us. Education is changing, learning is moving from the classrooms to the online world. This means that children and young adults are having to put in many hours in front of the screen than they ought to, and unfortunately, we have no other option. I am often asked this question by parents: how can we care for our children's eyes when they are spending excessive time in front of the screen? Or how to protect my child's eyes during prolonged screen time? This is a very valid concern, and I will try and address this here. The first aspect to look at is, why are screens harmful for the eyes? The answer to this is multifactorial. Firstly, most people use smartphones and tablets, both of which amount to near tasks. In children, it has been seen that prolonged near task can cause an increase in myopia or nearsightedness. The second factor is that when we are watching screens, our eyes are focused at a fixed distance for a long time. While in everyday life we are focusing at objects at near or intermediate or far distance, and our focus keeps changing when watching a screen, everything is happening at a fixed distance. This can cause eye muscle fatigue and weakness when we are keeping on looking at a short distance for a very long time. Thirdly, when watching a screen, we get very engrossed in the moment and forget to blink enough. This is particularly true for children, and it causes the eyes to become dry and then reflex watering to start. And finally, there are certain non-ophthalmic effects of screen time such as reduced span, hyperactivity, cervical spondylitis, etc., which are undesirable in both children as well as adults. There is a tendency to get engrossed when watching screens, and children often tend to forget to blink. This would result in watering of eyes, abnormal blink patterns, forceful blinking, or eye rubbing. These are all a result of the dry eyes caused by lack of adequate blinking, and this is worse in air-conditioned rooms or rooms with high-velocity fan. We must remind our children and ourselves to blink consciously when in front of screen to ensure strain-free viewing. It is important that we take regular breaks. This is one of the important tips that I would want to give. It is very important to take regular breaks from the screens, both for eyes and for the body. Ideally, we should follow something called as the 20-20-20 rule, which states that every 20 minutes we should look away from the screen for 20 seconds at an object 20 feet away. These short breaks give our eyes a chance to change focus to a faraway object and also help the neck muscles relax. If we regularly follow this process, then we can avoid eye fatigue despite spending the whole day in front of a screen. It is quite possible that the duration of online classes is longer than 20 minutes. Hence, this rule can't be exactly followed, but in such a case, a break can be taken as soon as the session ends or whenever convenient within the session. Most online courses and classes are not designed to be of durations longer than 20 to 40 minutes, and this rule can be practiced to a large extent with minor modifications. The next tip I'm going to give is to minimize the screen time to what is actually essential. We need to use screens for various purposes such as work, education, entertainment, and social connections. Of these, many things can be done by alternate means. Therefore, the use of screens should be kept to a minimum and for only the most necessary. Whenever possible, avoid the screen as far as possible. As parents, if we are glued to television or smartphone, then it is only natural for the child to want to use these devices. We can't expect to spend time off the screen while the child does reading or less fun tasks. The next tip, importantly, is to spend as much time outdoors as possible. Outdoor activities have been one of the only proven protective factors for myopia. In studies from around the world, particularly from Singapore, it has been found that children who spend more time outdoors tend to have lesser progression of myopia. Thus, it is very important for the child to spend time outdoors gazing at far distant objects. Time indoors in the sun is helpful for the overall health of the body too, with increase in vitamin D production, enhancement of immunity, and emotional well-being. The next tip that is crucial for us is about the diet. All of us know that we need to have a good diet. A good balanced diet is extremely critical for all of us and more so for our children. While there is no doubt that all vitamins and micronutrients are important for the body, certain ones are particularly more important for the eyes. These include vitamin A, vitamin C, vitamin E, lutein, xanthin, zeaxanthin, and omega-3 fatty acids. Though these are naturally found in diets like in carrots, beetroot, mango, papaya, citrus fruits, amla, green leafy vegetables, almonds, walnuts, eggs, and fish, it is best to try and have the child eat these vitamins in a natural form rather than having to give supplements. A thing to remember though is that there is no direct correlation between eyesight and diet, and poor sight is generally not due to dietary deficiency unless it is in a very malnourished child. This is an extremely important information to remember since most of the parents automatically attribute low vision or low sight to deficiency of vitamin A and then insist their children to keep eating carrots. So I hope these tips help you look after your child's eyes. We need to get used to use of technology in education, and there is no running away from the fact that screen time is only going to rise further in the times to come. So we should all make the best use of time in front of our screens and teach the child to do the same too. This brings us to the end of our podcast. For free resources and materials for eye-related diseases, conditions, and information, head over to www.nelivigieyehospital.com. I hope you found this podcast particularly useful. We look forward to having you join us again next week for another existing episode of Let There Be Vision podcast. Thank you so much for listening, and it is me, Dr. Sirish Nelivigi, signing off.